morning, good afternoon, good evening. I've stated on this platform that Zimbabwe is a failed state. And the number one reason why we are a failed state is that for the last 45 years, the nation has been stuck with this corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical Zanu PF dictatorship. 45 years. If we want to be honest with ourselves, we have to admit that in that period, we did have the opportunity to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. Particularly during the 2008 to 2013 GNU, Government of National Unity. Why then is it that we failed to implement even one token reform? Well, the answer to that one is very simple. Robert Mugabe, who was the president during the GNU, bribed the MDC leaders, Motlanthe Commission and company, with the trappings of high office, the E-Class Mercedes-Benz limos for all the deputy ministers, the two deputy prime ministers, and Prime Minister Motlanthe Commission himself, generous salary and allowances, including new vehicles for all the MDC, MPs and senators and other senior MDC leadership. And for Motlanthe Commission himself, a $4 million mansion. In return, the MDC guys forgot about the reforms. They failed to implement even one token reform in the 5 years of the GNU. Not one. Worse still, ever since the GNU, the MDC leaders have participated in flawed elections out of greed. This is why we are where we are. It is an outrage, therefore, to keep hearing some of these opposition leaders coming out with all manner of statements denouncing Zanu PF. In the media recently, Tendai Biti is reportedly denouncing Zanu PF leaders as murderers and fascists. I think the people of Zimbabwe should be smart enough to realize that this is just deceitful double dutch. He is denouncing Zanu PF, and yet Tendai Biti, of all people, was a senior MDC leader during the GNU. Why didn't he implement the democratic reforms which would have dismantled Zanu PF once and once for all? The truth of the matter is, he did not out of greed. MDC leaders have known that without reforms, Zanu PF will rig the elections. And that participating will only give Zanu PF legitimacy. But they continue to participate out of greed. That is at the heart of the argument. Here is a case, a video of what actually happened in 2013. And the two things to be noted in this video is one, how Zanu PF was blatantly rigging the elections. And this has continued beyond 2013. But the other important thing here is how people like Chairman Tendai Biti have accepted the blatant rigging of elections by Zanu PF as long as a few of them got the gravy train seats. And this is what has sustained the Zanu PF dictatorship. Zanu PF leaders have realized that as long as we let a few of these MDC Triple C leaders win seats, they'll give the process legitimacy. Here is the video. You judge for yourself.
How can we cheat like this?
There are some buses which are here.
Two buses there. One street in Mount Pleasant. One street. I think we shouldn't allow this. Officer, we don't want to be accused of disruptive, but this is not on. We can't allow this. Ask anyone who's clean show van. Ask this one, where does he stay in Mount Pleasant?
I will say to my seniors at Mount Pleasant.
All right, I'm doing that. But you can see it's
Yeah,
But
we'll take note of
yeah,
yeah,
we
but
can't.
you don't take note of them. Stop around.
That's why
Let's stop around. Because this is not on that we can have this blatant cheating. They are from the raw areas, yes. Yeah. Taken to think. And then post me as officers. They've been passed by those buses, as you can see. As one of them, a single address in Mount Pleasant. Just one. You need a bus to come from Morris Depot. Morris Depot is just across the road. You need a bus to come from Morris Depot.
but their sleeps retain Mount Pleasant.
So why were they carried with buses?
Just take a sample of 5. Go to the voters room with the slips. You find them not in the voters room.
They're not in the voters' room.
But their sleeves are retain Mount Pleasant, so we don't have the powers. So
When you are recruited, you have to shave your head into the police.
So they are. You think they are in the police in a
They're
role?
not genuine.
Not genuine.
Those
That's
fake
the
ones that
fake
are reacting for special forces.
Right.
They're militias.
You can see from the cards that it's
Fresh cards and
Don't have to play all of it. The bottom line is Tendai Biti witnessed firsthand the blatant cheating by Zanu PF. This is in HARARE, urban center, one can only imagine the level of blatant cheating in the rural areas where the regime knows that there are very few people there, the international media or international observers, to see what is happening. And yet, you'll be interested to know that at the end of the day, Tendai Biti was declared the winner. And he forgot about the blatant cheating. In other words, he didn't care about the blatant cheating as long as he was declared the winner. This has been at the heart of our failed political system. Zanu PF understood that mentality. They knew that as long as you let a few of the opposition leaders win, they will endorse the electoral process, no matter how flawed or illegal the process gets. David Coulthard admitted as much in his book, and I've often shown you that quotation. And it's showing you there at the bottom of the screen. He admitted the electoral process was so flawed, so illegal, the only logical step was to withdraw. But as he explains there at the bottom of your screen, he could not withdraw because he also knew that Zanu PF was giving away a few gravy train seats, and all the opposition leaders were competing for those few gravy train seats. And as long as you participate, you give the process legitimacy. So this whole farcical, it's almost farcical, Tendai Biti calling Zanu PF murderers and fascists, when he and his colleagues are the ones who know that they are the ones who have managed to keep Zanu PF in power by participating, first of all, by failing to implement reforms, even when they had the opportunity to do so, and then by participating in flawed elections, knowing fully well that doing so will only give Zanu PF legitimacy. This is the problem with Zimbabwe. We have opposition leaders who are no longer committed to implementing reforms to ensure free, fair, and credible elections. They only pretend that they are, when in reality they are not. And this problem becomes even worse when you consider that the ordinary people themselves have failed to see these opposition leaders for who they really are. The opposition leaders, MDC, CCC, have failed to implement even one token reform in 25 years, including the 5 years in the GNU. Why the people have failed to see that for what it is beggars belief. Indeed, Chamisa conned 2 million to participate in 2023 elections, promising them that CCC was going to win big because he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Zanu PF was not going to rig those elections. Day after the election, he was the first one to admit that Zanu PF had rigged the elections. And many of those people, if you ask them, they will also accept, yes, Zanu PF rigged the elections. But when you ask them, did Chamisa lie to you? They cannot bring themselves around to accepting it because of this deep-seated personality cult mentality, where leaders are elevated to the position of demigods who can do nothing wrong. And it is this fundamental weakness that the opposition, as well as Zanu PF leaders, are taking advantage of. I started by saying Zimbabwe is a failed state because we have failed to end the case of rigged elections. The people themselves have contributed to that by being so incredibly naive and gullible. Why anyone can fail to accept that Chamisa lied to them, even when they are presented with all the evidence. A simple historic fact like that, how can you fail to accept that reality? And yet there are millions there who are refusing to accept it. The problem is, of course, that Chamisa and company will con them to participate in 2028 elections, giving Zanu PF legitimacy and thus perpetuating the dictatorship. It is a challenge. Stopping these millions of people being conned yet again in 2028 is the biggest challenge Zimbabwe is facing right now. We can end this Zanu PF dictatorship, but we've got to be a lot smarter than we've been so far. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.